What is up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Surfing the Stream, where every week we're on a quest to find out what is the greatest movie of all time. And we are back with Horror in Review Part 5. Throughout the entire month of October, we are going to be reviewing a whole lot of horror movies, and we are focusing on the slasher film genre this year. There are so many movies out there that you could throw in the subgenre of slasher films, so it's kind of like it's personal opinion on whether it's a slasher film or not. So throughout the entire month, we're going to be knocking out some of the biggest slasher films ever made. And this week, I am reviewing Child's Play 2. Yes, we are skipping the original movie and going straight to the sequel, okay? One, I want to highlight the biggest slasher films that have ever been made. Obviously, we can't do Halloween because that one has already been reviewed on this channel. I went through all the Chucky movies and I said, okay, obviously Child's Play has to be one of the movies that I review for October. I mean, that is one of the quintessential slasher films, and it's definitely one of the ones that I grew up with. So which one do I review? Do I go one with the more comedy horror aspect of it, where it kind of got away from what the original movies were about? Or do I go with just the best one in general? And I'm going with number 2, which has always been my personal favorite of the series, Child's Play 2. I think this is a great fucking film. I actually hadn't seen it in 15 plus years. It probably was longer than that. And this was a movie that I grew up with. This was one of those movies, Friday the 13th, Halloween, and Chucky. Those were the 3 big movies or 3 big franchises that I watched growing up. Yeah, Freddy Krueger's out there with Nightmare on Elm Street, but I never really fell in love with that franchise. So for me personally, it was always Chucky, Jason, and Michael. Those are the 3 big ones for me. Shout out. And then, like I said, I started revisiting the entire Chucky series just to refresh myself on how great these movies were. So watching the OG movie, you get the sense that they just didn't know. Like, they went for the typical slasher film with that one. Yes, it has some comedic beats in it. For the most part, it's just your typical slasher film, right? 2, Child's Play 2, that's really where I felt like they decided to really hit towards the comedic side. Child's Play 2 has, to me, the perfect blend of that cheesy horror. It gives you the comedic beats while also being kind of serious with the horror. And I very much appreciate that. And one thing that this movie does very, very well, and it's something that a lot of horror movies don't get in general. One, there are very little jump scares in this, which I greatly appreciate. I fucking hate jump scares. But the thing that I appreciate the most is that every character has a distinct personality. They're all different from each other, and they all have like a little moment to shine. And when you start getting into like Child's Play 3, or maybe even Child's Play 1, they didn't have a ton of characters in Child's Play 1. But each character has a personality. And I'm not going to sit here and say that each character is developed properly, because they're not. Andy, for the most part, is just your typical child being chased by a fucking doll, right? But somehow they're able to make you care for these characters and the situations that they're in. And again, they give these characters just one little moment to shine, and that's enough to make them memorable. And I think they do that with just about every single character in this. And Brad Dourif is obviously the MVP throughout the entire movie. I think he really finds his groove with Chucky in this movie, whereas he didn't really get a whole lot of screen time in the first one, because they went with more of like a Jaws-like appearance for Chucky, where he didn't really show up or do anything big until halfway, maybe even 2/3 of the way through that movie. So in this film, I feel like he's finding that groove and he's getting that laugh down. Now, granted, I think the laugh probably gets better throughout the course of the series. It gets more sinister, more Joker-esque in nature. But I feel like this is the perfect blend of everything that he kind of does. Because I'm not a huge fan of comedy in my horror. I'm here to get scared. And this movie finds a way to make that perfect blend where it gives you a little beat here or there, but it doesn't distract or take you away from the movie itself. I feel like it actually adds to the movie overall. And then obviously with it being a slasher film, great kills across the board. I'm not going to sit here and say these are the best kills ever, but they're memorable to me. Every kill is distinct from one another, and I always remember the school teacher getting killed, or even the dad falling off the damn basement steps and breaking his neck. It's just stuff like that. And then hell, even Chucky, when he dies at the end with the acid, just all of that to me is just so memorable. And speaking of which, the whole set piece with them in the factory, if they wanted to end this series with Child's Play 2, I think they could have ended the Andy Barclay series with number 2. But I feel like there is closure in this, because not only do we get the ending that we get where he's just basically melted from the acid, but it goes back to the factory with the good guys, right? To do a proper ending, sometimes you have to go all the way back to the beginning to kind of really bring that story full circle. And I think they're able to do that with this movie. I don't know. I feel like they should have ended the Andy arc with number 2 and then probably moved on to a different story from that point forward. Because hell, even Child's Play 3 doesn't really do anything differently with that story. It just kind of ends the exact same way that this did, except it ends with him a little bit older. That's really the only difference. So personally, I wish it would have ended right here, and then Child's Play 3 would have taken place, I don't know, years down the road and with a different set of characters altogether. But overall, I really fucking love this movie. This is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. And it took a while for me to rewatch this, guys, but it's one of those things where Chucky is just a vastly underrated slasher film series. It really is. When you think greatest slasher films of all time, you think of your Halloweens, your Friday the 13th. Those are the first two that really come to mind when you think slasher films. And I think that the Chucky series really it doesn't really get its due. And honestly, yeah, the kills are maybe not as extravagant as some of the other series and as violent. I think it does enough throughout all the movies to really earn its place among the best slasher films of all time, especially best slasher franchise of all time. Well, guys, let me know in the comments below what you think about Child's Play 2 and just the Chucky series in general. Do you prefer the more comedic horror that it takes with later iterations, or do you prefer more of the OG vibes that it has with 1, 2, and 3? Let me know in the comments below. But also, there's in the description, there's links to all of our social media accounts. We would greatly appreciate it if you went there, like, subscribe, follow all of our accounts. That keeps you up to date with all of our latest reactions. TikTok, I do reactions to any big news or big episodes that get dropped from TV shows, new movies, etc. So we'd greatly appreciate it if you went there. But yeah, guys, I'm excited about doing slasher films in review. And we will catch y'all next time on another episode. Laters.